I embarked on this journey on building a micro fleet in LEGO. Now, a lot of people try to do this, but they don't know the correct scale or how to do scaling. The price is kind of crazy. So I want to make a tutorial slash guide on the free slash cheapest way on building a micro rebellion fleet, and in the future I'll start to expand on that. Let's start off with the most important thing, the scale and what does your fleet center around. This is one of the hardest parts to do since LEGO doesn't really release capital ships for the rebellion, and you want to use a capital ship because it's the nicest way to build a diorama. Everything will be surrounding it. But I would say the unanimous best ship to do this with is the Tantive V4 set. I'm not sure if it's still on sale, but the last few times I went to the LEGO store it's no longer there. But it's the perfect scale and the perfect model to do this around. The LEGO one's a perfect 1:250 scale, which all the ships in this video will follow. So that's $200. If you don't want the LEGO Tantive V4, there's the brickvaults that instructions alone cost $35. And the model itself, pieces into account, will cost you $350 to $400, which is a lot, and I'll talk about brickvault later on. As well as Ron McFaddy's, which the instructions just cost $9, and the build for it only costs $209, which I'll also talk about. I'll keep it where most of these builds can be easily made from just spare parts you have in your collection, but if you don't want to do that, I'm going to also try to have it where most of these can be easily bought off Bricklink. But more on that point, I want to see if you should spend your money on the coveted brick vault, or start spending your money on lesser known people in the community. Let's say you chose the LEGO official Tantive V4. Now, something that also is important is a stand. The reason why you want a stand is because it will look better because the ship is floating, but also has, more surface area to attach and put these mini builds around. You're also going to need quite a few of these small stands to attach the little starfighters to. Here's some of them. They're probably the best options out here. And if you don't have the stand on the Tantive V4, it doesn't look right being flat on the table. LEGO was actually smart enough to already put a space where you can put a stand on there, which makes me think that LEGO meant to have a stand there, but they just didn't want to put one in there for some reason. If you have any UCS LEGO ship builds, then you can already do this, it works perfectly. As well as you can use one off Rebrickable. This one right here is designed off the Snow Speeder. Links in the description for all of them. There's one down there for whether or not you want a minifig, stand, plaque, or whatever. But if you don't want to also use the Tantive V4, there's always this Nebulon B that cost you $1,000 to build. Jesus Christ. Oh, you know what? Don't do that one. Okay, enough with the setup. Let's start off with the models. X-Wing. Of course, I have to start with the most iconic vehicle in Star Wars, and that is the X-Wing. This one will take the longest because I have to introduce the ideas and different variations and which ones to do. Okay, let's start off with Brickvault, the most iconic mock seller. With Brickvault, there's, to be honest, not much upside unless you want to constantly buy Brickvault's instructions. I can't 100% recommend them from their Starfighter ship scale, with some exceptions. The reason I can't 100% recommend them is that their models are very flimsy, and it costs too much for the instructions alone and also the quality you're getting. These will be extremely highlighted with the Brickvault A-Wing, and that will really show the problem. The upside is that the scale is perfect. It should be the X-Wing should be 6.7 studs. The build uses a lot of illegal techniques, and it is flimsy. But the biggest drawback is the expos don't even close. So unless you're making a battle diorama, the expos are always closed, so I automatically can't recommend them. While they look good, they also are too flimsy and lack basic function. So next up is Ron McFaddy's. The same could be said with brickvaults with Ron McFaddy's. It's perfect scale, but Ron's are cheaper and more sturdier. See, Ron's Rebel fleet costs $1.50, but brickvaults cost $5. But also in brickvaults includes TIE fighters, but Ron McFaddy's TIE fighters are free, but brickvaults fits with their Gazanti, but their Gazanti also has instructions for the TIE fighter, so there's a lot of give and take, to be honest. And you have to really pick and choose which ones you like, depending on which seller you're using. But the X-Wing looks absolutely amazing, and that's simply it. That's all I need to say. It looks good. It has the function where the wings can close. And the clip piece where the gun isn't the best, but you can switch that out. Onto the free X-Wings, because all those cost money. These ones are the free. Zero Fox Given's first one. It's the order one, and it looks ugly. It just looks wonky. The middle connection just looks bad. It's not even worth mentioning, let's be honest. The second one that Zero Fox Given made is more akin to brickvaults and uses the same connection. It doesn't have the same sleekness as the brickvault. That's probably because it uses this middle stud, which I don't really like. Also, the back is kind of easy to, misalign, which can be annoying to fix. And when closed, the X-foils are kind of hard to close and they'll sometimes break, so that's really annoying. But overall, I think it looks good, and I suggest checking out his other models because they're free. The Master Builder X-Wing is a little weird at the front, and you can't really close the X-Wing, so it's an automatic no for me. That's basically what I'm trying to say. So for the best X-Wing out of Patties, and on this list, he has the consistent best models. The second one is free, and I have to give that to Zero Fox Given. He does what brickvaults is doing, but better. He also has the better blaster manifolds than Ron McFaddy's. And it's a really stark contrast from the first Zero Fox Given to the second. Next up is A-Wing. A-Wing should be 4 studs by 2 studs. Now, the A-Wing is probably the hardest model to build and find good ones for because they're either really bad looking or extremely flimsy. Let's take, for example, brickvaults first A-Wing. He brick vault hardened this so I can use it for fair use. It uses this 1x1 tile piece sandwiched in between this modified 1x1. And this is extremely flimsy. This is the first one I built thinking it's like, oh, this uses the least amount of parts, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of easy. It took me like 5 minutes to get the stud connection perfectly. And even still, it falls out or get misaligned. It's impossible to put on this little stud right here without like everything popping out. It's just bad. It's just bad. So needless to say, no, don't go with that one. Brickvault probably knew this, so they made another alternate version of the A-Wing, which looks really good. I would say this looks incredible. But stress over time will crack the bricks, so you know what? Skip Brickvault on this one. Second one is Ron McFaddy. And honestly, again, I have to give it to him. This looks amazing. I would say that brickvaults looks better with a lot of the angles, but Ron McFaddy's is actually stable and it doesn't take away from your pieces. So I still have to give it to Ron McFaddy. Unfortunately, there's like no good free ones. The Master Builders one captures the angles perfectly and it's sturdy, so I would go with that one. Then Zero Fox Givens looks a little bit wonky and doesn't even look like an A-Wing. It looks like a cool sci-fi spaceship, but not a Star Wars ship, and the rest are really too big. Which is sad because like the A-Wing's the hardest and it's a really iconic build and it's kind of hard to get a free A-Wing out of all this, so that's really unfortunate. U-Wing should be 11.99999 studs, so you can round that up to 12. The Brickvault one is set to be one of the best, and I don't have to explain that scale accurate. All their stuff is scale accurate, but the best one for free actually is Ron McFaddy's. Yes, he has quite a few also free builds, which is a very smart business tactic on him. Because if I had a store, I would do the same thing. Because I would hook some people in with like, you have a U-Wing now for free. How about you go buy the rest of my vehicles? It's a very smart business tactic. But unfortunately, it's not to perfect scale. It's 15 studs long. But luckily, you can just take out some of the builds. I recommend these 2 studs right here. And also some from the back. And it would be a perfect scale. Also, I would recommend not doing the heads or the, wheel models and just using a white cylinder. That would be better. So automatically I have to give it to Ron McFaddy's for, actually looking really good and being free. The model also looks really, really good on a stand. The only drawback is it's a little bit flimsy on the wing, but after that, it's solid. So this is one of the best model here, period, if you just, modify it a little bit. B-Wing. The B-Wing length is 8.5 studs long. Brickvaults is fine, but the fins at the bottom don't stay aligned, which is annoying. Also, the wing connections, I'm gonna be honest, is a little lackluster. And again, the X-Wheels don't close unless you do this very specific thing, and it's kind of annoying. Also on mine, the piece start to crack again, which is another problem with brickvaults. Their pieces keep on cracking whenever you're doing their models because of the sheer amount of illegal techniques. So unless you're firing in this, very specific way, which is the long way and the sideways, which are the most iconic, but still, it's disappointing because these, you can't have it in non-combative mode. Ron McFaddy's looks the best out of all of these, and if you're using it for usability and display, it's the best, but honestly, it's a little bit too big. Zero Fox Givens looks okay, but you're not able to put the iconic colors on it, but you can at least close the X-Foils. That's the bare minimum thing to do. And Scout the Trooper's normal B-Wing looks perfect, and I would say it's the best here, but you cannot close the X-Foils. So for the best one, I had to give it to Scout the Trooper, and then I have to give it to Ron McFaddy's, even though Scout the Troopers lacks, the ability to close the wings. Last out of alphabet is the Y-Wing. Really, all these are up for interpretation, but I'm going to really show you that this one is extremely up for interpretation, like whether or not you like the design or not. brickvaults looks really good and also said to be one of their best out of all of these. The only problem is it uses the rubber bands, and those can be expensive. It also uses white minifig heads. Ron McFaddy's good, but the engines bump up, which, I mean, depends on what you like. If you like the engines bump up, then you're going to like Ron McFaddy's. If you're like me and you like the sleekness of the Y-Wing, you're going to want to go with brickvaults. And instead of using heads, it uses skateboard helmets, and I'm not sure how many of you guys have that many skateboard helmets, so you're probably going to bricklink these. For free, there's Zero Fox Gibbons, which can use a lot of work. Hopefully he starts to update these like he did with the X-Wing. I mean, he has some good looking models, it's just this one isn't it. And Master Builders is fine, it's just, you know, I don't like the big engines, but it used the white heads. So if you want the best one, in my opinion, go with brickvault, because I like the sleek version. But if you want a free one with the bulky, you have to go with Master Builders. I like the white heads over the skateboard helmets. Overall, okay, so if you had to buy one group of starfighters, which one it's Ron McFaddy's. You might only get the Rebel starfighters, but also Ron has the TIE fighters for free, and Zero Fox Gibbons has amazing TIE fighters that are to the scale. The only benefit to brickvault is that they can go with the Gazanti. Like I mentioned, the Gazanti Instructions has the TIE fighter, so you're fine. Also on the load, the Gazanti is connected with this TIE fighter piece, with this little stamp piece and this, you know, cycle right here. So, you know, it's kind of easy to make. So, instead of spending $15 with brickvault, you're just spending $9 on instructions. And in my opinion, you're getting the better Starship models. Also, brickvault doesn't have stability. I actually PM Ron McFaddy. This isn't sponsored, by the way. This is just, you know, my opinion. But I PM'd him about the stability of his models, and he sent me a whole video moving around his models, and even drop testing some of them. If you try to do that with brickvault, they would absolutely crumble. And that might be because I feel like they bite off more they can chew. Like, take the Ghost, for example. It looks sexy, but look at the connections. You touch this the wrong thing, you're spending the next 15 minutes trying to fix it. But if you look at Ron McFaddy's, it might not have the same sleekness of brickvaults, but you know, it's still is functional. That literally goes for all of his models. And you know, like I mentioned at the beginning, some of them are free. So if you want to expand on your micro fleet, which my next video will be about expanding on this, honestly, just take other mock creators into accountability besides, you know, brickvault, which is the standard one. And also, they use so many illegal connections. I like brickvault, but you know, you have to go start to outsourcing if you want to build stuff like these. Anyways, that is it for this video. Next time we're going to start doing star freighters like, you know, the YT-1300 freighter and the VCX-100. That is it. Thank you for watching. Thank you to Ron McFaddy for sending me this video of your models. Thank you for watching.